The blood trail on her porch steps told Diana Greene that whatever was dying outside her cabin door had fought like hell to reach her before the end came. She stood frozen in the doorway of her little homestead, gripping the rifle she had grabbed at the sound of scraping and groaning, watching as a man's hand clawed at the wooden planks one more time before falling still. The early morning sun of 1877 Texas cast long shadows across the prairie surrounding Sweetwater, and in that golden light she could see the dark stains spreading beneath his body. Diana dropped the rifle and ran to him, her boots thudding against the worn boards. When she rolled him over, she had to swallow hard against the shock. His face was gray beneath days of dirt and dried blood, his shirt shredded and soaked through with fresh red, 3 bullet wounds that she could see, maybe more beneath all that torn fabric. His breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps that spoke of punctured lungs or worse. "Can you hear me?" she asked, knowing he probably could not. His eyes stayed closed, his lips cracked and bleeding. She hooked her hands under his arms and pulled, groaning with the effort. He was solid muscle and dead weight, and she was a woman of 22 who stood barely 5 feet 4 inches tall. But Diana had been hauling water and chopping wood and surviving alone out here for 2 years since her father died, and she had strength in her small frame that surprised most people. She dragged him inch by agonizing inch across her threshold, his boots leaving smears of red and dust across the floor she had scrubbed just yesterday. Once inside, she kicked the door shut and let him drop as gently as she could onto the braided rug near her fireplace. Her hands shook as she grabbed scissors and began cutting away his ruined shirt. The wounds were worse than she had feared. 2 bullets had torn through his left side, one high near his ribs and one lower near his hip. The third had caught him in the shoulder, and when she rolled him slightly to check his back, she found an exit wound there that was still bleeding freely. He had lost so much blood already that she did not understand how his heart still beat. Diana had nursed her father through his final illness and had doctored herself through a winter fever that nearly killed her. But this was different. This required knowledge she barely possessed and luck she was not sure either of them had. She built up the fire first, setting water to boil in her largest pot. Then she grabbed every clean cloth she owned, her sewing kit, the bottle of whiskey she kept for emergencies, and the tin of carbolic powder the traveling doctor had sold her last year. The man moaned when she began cleaning the wounds, a sound so full of pain that tears sprang to her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered, working as quickly as she dared. "I am so sorry, but I have to do this." His eyes opened once, just for a moment, and she found herself staring into the deepest brown she had ever seen, even glazed with fever and pain. They held something that made her breath catch, recognition maybe, or gratitude. Then they closed again, and he went still except for that terrible, shallow breathing. Diana worked through the morning and into the afternoon. She cleaned and packed the wounds, stitched what she could with shaking fingers, and bandaged everything with strips torn from her spare sheet. She got water down his throat a few drops at a time, then broth from the soup she had made yesterday. She bathed his face and neck, trying to bring down the fever that made his skin burn beneath her touch. By evening, she knew that if he made it through the night, he might have a chance. It was not a good chance, but it was something. She made herself eat a little bread and cheese, though her stomach was twisted in knots, then settled into her father's old rocking chair next to the dying man. She studied his face in the firelight. He was young, probably not more than 25 or 26, with dark hair that curled slightly against his neck and a strong jaw shadowed with several days of beard. There was a scar through his right eyebrow and another along his collarbone. His hands, calloused and rough, suggested hard work and harder living. A cowboy, she guessed, or maybe a ranch hand. His gun belt, which she had removed and hung on a peg by the door, held a well-maintained Colt and the kind of carved leather tooling that spoke of pride in craft. "Who are you?" she asked the unconscious man. "And who did this to you?" He did not answer, of course. His breathing continued its ragged rhythm, and Diana found herself counting each inhale and exhale, willing him to keep going. She dozed off sometime near midnight, her head tipping forward against her chest. She woke to the sound of him thrashing, crying out words she could not understand. The fever had worsened, turning his skin slick with sweat and making him delirious. Diana grabbed more cloths and the basin of cool water, sponging him down and murmuring soothing nonsense the way she had heard mothers calm frightened children. "You are safe," she told him. "You are inside and safe, and I will not let you die. Do you hear me? I will not let you die." His movements gradually stilled under her ministrations, and after what felt like hours, the fever broke. She felt it happen, felt the change in his skin temperature and the easing of his breath. Diana slumped back in her chair, exhausted and relieved in equal measure. Dawn was breaking outside, painting her cabin windows with pink and gold light. She must have fallen asleep then, truly asleep, because when she woke, the sun was high and hot outside and someone was watching her. Diana's eyes snapped open to find the man awake, those brown eyes focused on her face with an intensity that made her heart stutter. "Water," he rasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. Diana scrambled to pour him a cup, then helped him lift his head enough to drink. He managed a few swallows before falling back, panting with the effort. "Where am I?" he asked. "In my cabin, about 5 miles north of Sweetwater. You crawled to my door yesterday morning, half dead." She set the cup aside and looked at him seriously. "You are still not out of danger. Those bullets tore you up badly." He closed his eyes, and for a moment she thought he had passed out again. But then he spoke, so quietly she had to lean close to hear. "Thank you for pulling me in, for fighting for me." "What is your names?" Diana asked. "Vincent Fallow." He opened his eyes again. "And you are?" "Diana Greene. This is my homestead." She hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Who shot you?" Vincent's jaw tightened, and she saw rage flicker across his features before exhaustion smoothed them again. "Raiders, 4 of them. Attacked the ranch I was working at, killed my boss and his wife, burned the house. I tried to stop them." He coughed, grimacing at the pain it caused. "Obviously, I failed." "You are alive," Diana said firmly. "That is not failure." "The Hendersons are not." His voice went flat and cold. "They were good people. They gave me work when I needed it, treated me fair. And those bastards murdered them for the $50 in the house and whatever horses they could steal." Diana felt a chill run through her. Raiders this close to town? The sheriff should be told? The sheriff is 3 days gone to Austin on some kind of business, according to what Henderson told me last week. Vincent tried to shift position and went white with pain. "Even if he was here, I do not know if he would care much. Henderson's place is remote, and we are just working folk." The bitterness in his words told her he had experience with law that did not work equally for everyone. Diana knew the feeling. When her father died, and men from town had tried to pressure her into selling her land for a fraction of its worth, the sheriff had made it clear that a young woman alone had no business trying to run a homestead. She had proved him wrong, but it had been a hard 2 years. "Well," Diana said, straightening her spine, "the raiders are not here, and you are. Right now, my concern is keeping you alive and healing. We can worry about justice later." Vincent studied her for a long moment, and she got the sense he was really seeing her for the first time. Taking in her dark blonde hair pulled back in a simple braid, her plain calico dress, her small, capable hands. "You do this often? Drag dying men inside and nurse them back to health?" Despite everything, Diana felt a smile tug at her lips. "You are my first. I hope you will not be too disappointed if my skills are somewhat lacking. You kept me breathing through the night. That is more than most could have done." His eyes were drifting shut again. "Thank you, Miss Greene." "Diana," she said, If I'm going to be changing your bandages and helping you with a bedpan, we can dispense with formality." That got a huff of surprised laughter from him, cut short by pain. "Vincent, then. Or Vince, if you prefer." She watched as sleep claimed him again. This time the deeper, more natural sleep of genuine rest rather than fevered unconsciousness. Diana allowed herself a moment to simply breathe, to let the tension drain from her shoulders. He was going to live. She felt it in her bones, knew it with a certainty that defied logic. The next few days passed in a blur of tending wounds, coaxing broth and water into Vincent, and keeping the fever at bay when it tried to return. Diana barely slept, catching an hour here and there in her rocking chair while Vincent dozed. She learned the rhythm of his breathing, could sense when he was slipping toward wakefulness even before his eyes opened. He was a difficult patient, stubborn and proud, insisting he could do more than his battered body would allow. On the third day, he tried to sit up on his own and nearly tore open the stitches in his side. Diana found him white-faced and shaking, one hand pressed to the bandage. "You fool, man," she said, pushing him back down with less gentleness than she had been using. "Do you want to bleed out on my clean floor?" "I need to use the necessary," he said through gritted teeth. "I am not going to make you carry a bedpan again." "Your pride is going to kill you?" But Diana helped him up anyway, let him lean his considerable weight against her small frame as they made the slow, painful journey to the outhouse behind the cabin. By the time they got him back inside and settled, they were both shaking with effort. "You are stronger than you look," Vincent said, his breathing labored. "I have to be." Diana checked his bandages, relieved to see only a small amount of fresh blood. Out here alone, strength is survival. "How long have you been alone?" 2 years. My father died of a heart ailment the winter of '75. My mother passed when I was young. Fever took her." Diana busied herself stirring the stew she had made for dinner. "Father and I came out here in '72 determined to make something of this land. He did not get to see it succeed, but I will make it work. For him." "No other family? No husband?" Diana shot him a sharp look. "If I had a husband, do you think I would be here alone?" "I suppose not. Just seems like a woman as pretty as you would have suitors lining up." She felt heat rise to her cheeks and turned back to the stew so he would not see. "The men around Sweetwater have made their interest known, but they are interested in my land and having someone to cook and clean for them, not in me. I have no interest in being a servant in my own home." "Smart woman." There was approval in his voice that made something warm bloom in Diana's chest. She ladled stew into 2 bowls and brought one to him, helping him sit up enough to eat. He managed half the bowl before exhaustion claimed him again. That night, Diana lay in her own bed for the first time since Vincent had arrived. He was stable enough that she felt comfortable sleeping in the small bedroom rather than keeping watch in the chair, but she found herself lying awake, listening to the sounds of another person breathing in her cabin. It should have felt strange or frightening, having a man she barely knew under her roof. Instead, it felt almost natural, as if some empty space she had not known existed was finally being filled. By the end of the first week, Vincent could sit up on his own and even stand for a few minutes at a time. His color had returned, though he was still weak and the wounds were far from healed. Diana changed his bandages twice daily and tried not to notice the hard planes of his chest or the way his muscles shifted under her hands. He was a patient, she told herself firmly. Nothing more. But it was getting harder to believe that lie. Vincent was easy to talk to once he had the strength for conversation. He told her about growing up in Oklahoma, about losing his own parents to cholera when he was 16, about drifting from ranch to ranch looking for honest work. Diana found herself sharing things she had not spoken of in years. Her mother's laugh, her father's dreams for the homestead, the loneliness that sometimes threatened to crush her on long winter nights. "You should not be alone out here," Vincent said one evening as they sat together by the fire. He was in the rocking chair now, and Diana sat on the floor with her back against the stone hearth. "It is too dangerous." "I have my rifle." And I know how to use it. Most animals and men are smart enough to leave me be. She poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling up the chimney. Besides, this is my home. I will not abandon it just because I'm a woman. I am not saying you should. Vincent leaned forward, earnest despite the pain the movement cost him. I am saying you are brave as hell and tougher than most men I have known. But brave and tough does not stop a bullet or a rattlesnake or a winter storm. Neither does having a man around necessarily. My father died despite my best efforts to save him. Diana heard the bitterness in her own voice and tried to soften it. I know you mean well, Vincent, but I have been taking care of myself for a long time now. He settled back in the chair, studying her in that intense way he had. I know you have. I can see it in everything about you, the way you move, the way you handle yourself. You are capable and strong. He paused. I just worry. You have known me a week. Long enough to know you are the kind of person worth worrying about. Diana felt something shift between them in that moment, a recognition of feelings that went beyond gratitude or simple attraction. She looked away first, her heart pounding. You should rest. You are still healing. But that night, lying in her bed, she could not stop thinking about the way he had looked at her, like she mattered, like she was more than just the woman who had saved his life. The second week brought new challenges. Vincent was stronger, able to move around the cabin with increasing ease, but he was also restless and frustrated with his limitations. He wanted to help with chores, wanted to repay Diana for her care. She found him one morning trying to split wood one-handed, his face gray with pain. Absolutely not, she said, taking the axe from him. Sit down before you fall down. I cannot just lie around while you do everything, he protested. Let me help. You are helping by healing. That is your job right now. Diana pointed at the porch steps. Sit, watch if you must, but do not try to take this axe from me again. He sat glowering, but stayed put while she split the morning wood. Diana was acutely aware of his eyes on her, watching each swing of the axe. When she finished and carried the wood inside, he followed. You are really good at that, he said. Practice? I have been doing it every day for 2 years. Diana stacked the wood by the fireplace, then straightened with a hand pressed to her lower back. Though I will admit, it would be nice to have help sometimes. When I am healed, I will split enough wood to last you through next winter, Vincent said. It is the least I can do. You do not owe me anything. I owe you my life, Diana. He moved closer, and she found herself very aware of how small her cabin was, how little space existed between them. That is not a debt I take lightly. She looked up at him, at the sincerity in those brown eyes, and felt her breath catch. Vincent! Whatever she had been about to say was lost as a shout came from outside. Diana grabbed her rifle and moved to the window, peering out carefully. 3 riders were approaching, moving fast. Vincent appeared at her shoulder, somehow having retrieved his gun belt without her noticing. Stay inside, he said quietly. Let me handle this. This is my home. I will handle it. But Diana was glad he was there, glad for the solid presence of him at her back as she opened the door and stepped onto the porch. The riders pulled up in a cloud of dust. Diana recognized them immediately and felt her stomach drop. The Carson brothers, a trio of troublemakers who had been sniffing around her property since her father died. They worked as ranch hands when they felt like it and caused problems the rest of the time. Miss Greene, said Jake Carson, the eldest and meanest of the 3. Heard you might have a visitor, thought we would ride out and check on you, make sure everything is all right. Everything is fine, Diana said, keeping her rifle lowered but ready. I do not recall inviting you onto my land. Now is that any way to treat neighbors? Jake's eyes flicked to Vincent, who had stepped out onto the porch despite Diana's attempt to block him. Who is your friend? None of your business. Vincent's voice was cold and hard. The lady asked you to leave. Jake's hand moved toward his gun, and Diana's heart stopped. But Vincent was faster, his Colt clearing leather in a movement so smooth it seemed effortless despite his injuries. "I would not," he said quietly. The three brothers froze. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Jake smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Just being neighborly, no need for guns." "Then you can be neighborly somewhere else." Vincent did not lower his weapon. "Go on now." They went, but slowly, making it clear they were leaving by choice rather than from fear. Diana watched until they disappeared over the ridge, then rounded on Vincent. "What were you thinking? You could have torn every stitch, could have started bleeding again." "They were not here to check on you," Vincent said, holstering his gun. "Men like that, they see a woman alone and think she is easy prey. Better they know you have someone watching over you." "I can watch over myself." "I know you can." His voice gentled. "But there is nothing wrong with having backup. Those three are trouble, Diana. I could see it written all over them." She wanted to argue, to insist she had been handling the Carson brothers just fine on her own. But the truth was they had been getting bolder lately, their visits more frequent, and their suggestions more pointed. Having Vincent here, even temporarily, might convince them to look for easier targets. "Fine," she said. "But next time, do not risk your health playing hero. I did not spend a week keeping you alive just to watch you get shot again." Something flickered across his face at that, an emotion Diana could not quite name. "Yes, madam," he said softly. The confrontation seemed to shift something between them. Vincent became more protective, insisting on sitting on the porch while Diana worked outside, his gun always within reach. Diana told herself it annoyed her, this presumption that she needed protecting. But secretly, she felt safer than she had in months. 3 weeks after Vincent's arrival, Diana finally agreed he was healed enough to remove the stitches. She worked carefully, snipping and pulling each thread free while he sat shirtless on a chair. Her fingers brushed his skin more than necessary, and she could not seem to help noticing the way his muscles tensed under her touch or the sound of his breathing changing when her hand lingered too long. "All done," she said, stepping back quickly. "The scars will be permanent, but the wounds themselves are closed." Vincent looked down at himself at the puckered red lines that marked where bullets had nearly killed him. "Could have been worse. Thanks to you, they are just scars." "You will need to take it easy for a while longer. No heavy lifting, no splitting wood." Diana began putting away her supplies, needing something to do with her hands. "Another few weeks, at least." "Diana." He caught her hand as she moved past him. "Look at me." She did reluctantly. His brown eyes were serious, searching her face. "I need to tell you something, Maria," he said, "and I need you to hear me out before you respond." Her heart was hammering now. "All right." Vincent stood, still holding her hand, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "These past 3 weeks being here with you have been the best of my life, even with the pain, even with nearly dying, because you are remarkable, Diana Greene. You are strong and capable and kind. You are beautiful and smart and braver than anyone I have ever met. And I am falling in love with you." Diana felt the world tilt. "Vincent, you cannot. You're only saying that because I saved your life. It is gratitude, not love." "It is love," he said firmly. "I know the difference. I have been grateful to plenty of people in my life, and I have never felt like this." He brought her hand to his chest, pressing it against the steady beat of his heart. "When I look at you, I see my future. When I think about leaving here, about riding away from you, I cannot breathe right. You have only known me 3 weeks." But her voice was shaking, betraying the emotion she was trying to keep contained. "I have known you long enough to know I want to spend the rest of my life getting to know you better." Vincent raised his free hand to her face, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that made tears spring to her eyes. "I am not asking you to say you love me too. I am just asking you to let me stay. Let me help you with this homestead. Let me stand by your side. Give me a chance to prove I am more than just a dying man you took pity on." Diana closed her eyes, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. Every practical, cautious part of her said this was too fast, too soon, too dangerous for her heart. But the part of her that had been lonely for so long, the part that had watched him heal and talked with him by firelight and learned the sound of his breathing, that part was screaming at her to say yes. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I." Vincent's thumb brushed away her tears. "But I have faced down death and killers and uncertainty. This, you and me, is the first thing I've been sure about in my entire life." She opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the truth written plain on his face, the vulnerability and hope and fierce determination. "I do not want you to stay out of obligation. If you are going to be here, it has to be because you truly want to be." "I want to be here more than I have ever wanted anything." He leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. "Can I kiss you?" Diana answered by rising on her toes and closing the distance between them. His lips met hers softly at first, questioning, then with growing confidence as she kissed him back. It was sweet and tender and perfect, and when they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "So that is a yes?" Vincent asked, a smile playing at his lips. "I can stay?" "You can stay." Diana rested her forehead against his chest, feeling his arms come around her carefully, mindful of his healing wounds. "But we are taking this slow, Vincent Fallow. I will not be rushed into anything." "As slow as you want," he promised. "I am not going anywhere." Over the following weeks, they built a new rhythm together. Vincent gradually took on more chores as his strength returned, feeding the chickens and tending Diana's small vegetable garden. He fixed the leak in her roof and mended the broken fence posts she had been meaning to get to for months. Diana found herself cooking for two and liking it, enjoying the way Vincent appreciated her meals and insisted on helping with dishes. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Vincent told her about the places he had seen, the different ranches and towns. Diana shared her dreams for the homestead, how she wanted to expand the garden and maybe get a few head of cattle. They discovered shared loves of clear, starry nights and the smell of rain on dry earth. They argued good-naturedly about the best way to cook beans and whether summer or winter was preferable. And slowly, carefully, they learned each other in other ways. Stolen kisses while working side by side. The way Vincent's hand would find hers as they sat on the porch in the evening. The night Diana woke from a nightmare about her father's death and found Vincent there, holding her until she could breathe again. The afternoon Vincent's nightmares about the raid returned, and Diana talked him through it, her voice steady and calm. "You do not have to carry it alone," she told him, sitting beside him on the floor where he had slid down after jerking awake. "Whatever darkness you are holding, you can share it with me." "I keep seeing their faces," Vincent said, his voice raw. "The Hendersons, they were good people, Diana. They did not deserve what happened to them." "No, they did not." Diana took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "But you survived. You lived to tell their story, to make sure they are remembered. That matters." "Does it?" "The men who killed them are still out there, probably hurting someone else. The sheriff is back from Austin now. You could report what happened, give descriptions of the raiders." Diana squeezed his hand. "It might not bring the Hendersons back, but it could save the next family." Vincent looked at her, gratitude and something deeper shining in his eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "When I had to." She leaned her head against his shoulder. We all carry ghosts, Vincent. The trick is not letting them keep us from living." 2 days later, they rode into Sweetwater together. It was Diana's first time bringing Vincent to town, and she was nervous about the gossip that would inevitably follow. A young woman alone with a man who was not her husband would set tongues wagging. But Vincent had insisted on reporting the raid, and Diana was not about to let him face the sheriff alone. Sweetwater was a small town, just a main street lined with wooden buildings and a handful of side streets branching off. The general store, the saloon, the church, the sheriff's office, and a scattering of other businesses made up the heart of the community. People stopped to stare as Diana and Vincent rode past, and she kept her head high, refusing to show any shame or discomfort. Sheriff Tom Bradley was a weathered man in his 50s with gray shot through his beard and a skeptical expression that seemed permanently etched into his features. He listened to Vincent's account of the raid with narrowed eyes, occasionally interrupting to ask questions. "And you are sure it was 4 men?" Bradley asked. "Positive. I saw all 4 of them got a good look before they started shooting." Vincent described each raider in detail, their horses, their weapons, even the distinctive scar one of them had across his nose. "Could have been the Morrison gang," Bradley said slowly. "They have been hitting ranches up north, been working their way down. If they are in my territory now, we have got a problem." He looked at Vincent hard. "You willing to testify if we catch them?" "Absolutely." Bradley nodded, then his gaze shifted to Diana. "Miss Greene, did not expect to see you in town, especially not with a strange man." "Vincent is not a stranger, Sheriff. He has been staying at my homestead while recovering from his wounds." Diana kept her voice level and cool. "I expect the town will have plenty to say about it, but I do not particularly care." A ghost of a smile crossed the sheriff's face. "No, I do not suppose you do. You have always been stubborn, just like your father." He turned back to Vincent. "You planning on staying around these parts?" "If Diana will have me, yes." "Then you had better make it proper. This town can be small-minded about unmarried folk living together." Bradley shuffled some papers on his desk. "Just friendly advice, understand?" They left the sheriff's office in silence. Diana felt her cheeks burning, angry and embarrassed in equal measure. Vincent, however, seemed thoughtful rather than upset. "He is not wrong," Vincent said as they walked toward the general store. "About the town talking, I mean." "I do not care what they say." "I do." Vincent stopped walking, turning to face her. "I care about your reputation, Diana. I care about making sure nobody has reason to speak ill of you because of me." "So what are you suggesting, that you leave?" She felt panic rising in her chest at the thought. "No." He took both her hands in his right there on the main street of Sweetwater with half the town watching. "I am suggesting we get married." Diana felt the world stop spinning. "What?" "Marry me." Vincent's voice was steady. "Sure. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a month and a half, but I meant what I said before, Diana. I love you. I want to spend my life with you, building that homestead, making a real home together. And if getting married means protecting your reputation and making it clear to everyone that I am committed to you, then that is just one more reason to do it." "Vincent, you cannot propose marriage just to stop gossip." "I am not. I am proposing marriage because I want to be your husband. The gossip is just a convenient excuse to do it now rather than waiting." He smiled at her, that smile that made her heart flip over. "But if you need more time, I understand. I will wait as long as you need me to." Diana looked at him, at this man who had crawled half dead to her door and who she had fought so hard to save. This man who made her laugh and challenged her and looked at her like she hung the moon. This man who had somehow become essential to her happiness in a matter of weeks. "Yes," she said. Vincent blinked. "Yes?" "Yes, I will marry you." Diana felt a smile spreading across her face, joy bubbling up inside her. "You are right. We have not known each other long, and this is probably foolish and reckless. But I love you, Vincent Fallow. I think I started loving you when you opened your eyes that first morning and thanked me. So yes, I will marry you." He let out a whoop of joy that turned heads all down the street, then swept her up in his arms and spun her around. Diana laughed, clinging to his shoulders, not caring at all who saw them. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, and the fact that they were standing in the middle of town in broad daylight made it even sweeter. They were married 3 days later in Sweetwater's small church, with the preacher's wife and the general store owner serving as witnesses. Diana wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved in a trunk, the ivory lace only slightly yellowed with age. Vincent had bought a new shirt and vest with money from selling his saddle, and he looked so handsome Diana's breath caught when she saw him waiting at the altar. The ceremony was simple and short. They exchanged vows, their voices steady despite the enormity of what they were promising. Vincent slipped a simple gold band onto Diana's finger, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was full of promise and hope. A few townspeople had gathered, drawn by curiosity more than genuine goodwill. But there were also some friendly faces. The preacher's wife, Mrs. Thompson, hugged Diana warmly. "I am happy for you, dear. Your father would have been pleased to see you settled with a good man." "Thank you," Diana said, surprised to feel tears prickling her eyes. "That means a great deal." They had a small celebration dinner at the town's restaurant, just the two of them, then rode back to the homestead as the sun was setting. Diana felt strange and giddy all at once. She was married. She had a husband. The little cabin would now be home to both of them. Vincent helped her down from her horse, then stood holding her for a long moment, just looking at her. "Hello, Mrs. Fallow," he said softly. "Hello, Mr. Fallow." Diana smiled up at him. "How does it feel to be a married man?" "Like coming home," he said, and kissed her. That night was tender and sweet, and everything Diana had hoped for. Vincent was gentle with her, patient, making sure she felt cherished and safe. Afterwards, lying in his arms in the darkness of her bedroom, Diana felt a peace she had not known in years. She was not alone anymore. She had a partner, a love, a future that looked brighter than she had ever dared imagine. "No regrets?" Vincent asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "None," Diana said. "You?" "Not a single one." He kissed the top of her head, "Though I should probably warn you, I am a terrible snorer." Diana laughed. "I already know. You have been snoring in my cabin for 6 weeks. And you married me anyway. That is true love." They fell asleep wrapped around each other. And when Diana woke in the morning to find Vincent still there, still real, still hers, she sent up a silent prayer of gratitude to whatever force had sent him crawling to her door. The following months were the happiest of Diana's life. She and Vincent fell into an easy partnership, dividing the work of the homestead between them. Vincent proved to be a skilled carpenter, building additional shelves and a larger table for the cabin. He expanded the chicken coop and constructed a small barn for the 2 horses and the cow they bought with money, saved from selling eggs and vegetables in town. Diana taught Vincent her father's techniques for coaxing the most from the difficult Texas soil. Together they planted a larger garden and watched it flourish under their combined care. They talked about the future, about maybe raising cattle or horses, about building onto the cabin when children came. Because children would come, they both knew it. Wanted it. The thought of a baby with Vincent's dark hair or her blue eyes made Diana's heart swell, but there were challenges too. In late September, the Carson brothers returned. This time there were 5 of them, and they arrived at night when Diana and Vincent were just finishing dinner. The sound of horses brought Vincent to his feet, his hand going automatically to his gun. "Stay inside," he told Diana. "Not a chance." Diana grabbed her rifle. "This is my home, too." They stepped onto the porch together, presenting a united front. Jake Carson sat on his horse, smirking in the light of the moon. "Well, well, heard you 2 went and got hitched. How sweet." "What do you want, Carson?" Vincent's voice was flat and dangerous. "Just thought we would come by and welcome you to the area proper like." Jake's smirk widened. "See, we have been keeping an eye on this pretty little piece of land for a while now. Miss Greene, or I guess it is Mrs. Fallow now, has been working it all alone. But now that you are here, Fallow, things are different." "You are right. Things are different." Vincent moved down the porch steps slowly. "She has someone to stand with her now. Someone who will not be pushed around or scared off. So whatever you are thinking, whatever you have planned, you can forget it. This land is not for sale, and we are not going anywhere." Big words from a man outnumbered 5-2. Jake's hand moved to his gun. "Maybe we should see if you can back them up." "Vincent." Diana's voice was sharp with fear. She could not lose him. Not now. Not like this. But Vincent did not move, did not flinch. You can try, he said quietly. But I promise you, Jake, I will put a bullet in you before you clear leather. You have seen how fast I am. You willing to die tonight to find out if I am as good as I look? For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. Then one of the other riders, a younger man Diana did not recognize, spoke up. This is not worth it, Jake. Let it go. Jake's face twisted with rage, but after a moment he spurred his horse around. This is not over, Fallow, not by a long shot. They rode away into the darkness, and Diana felt her knees go weak with relief. Vincent caught her as she swayed, holding her against his chest. They will be back, she said. I know, but we will be ready. Vincent looked down at her, his expression serious. Diana, I need you to promise me something. If they come back and things go bad, I need you to promise me you will run. Get on a horse and ride to town and do not look back. I will not leave you. You have to. If something happens to me, you need to survive. Promise me. Diana wanted to argue, to refuse, but she saw the fear in his eyes and understood. He needed to know she would be safe, that his death would not be meaningless. I promise, she whispered, but you have to promise me you will do everything you can to come back to me. Always? The next morning, Vincent rode into Sweetwater and spoke to Sheriff Bradley about the Carson brothers' visit. Bradley promised to look into it, but his tone suggested he did not expect to find anything actionable. Threats were hard to prove, and the Carsons had not actually done anything illegal by riding onto someone's property. Keep your guns close, Bradley advised, and if they come back, fire a warning shot and send someone for me. I will come running. It was not much reassurance, but it was all they had. Vincent and Diana returned to the homestead and went about their work, but both of them stayed alert, watching the horizon for riders. 2 weeks passed without incident. Diana began to hope that maybe the Carsons had decided to leave them alone. Then one afternoon, while Vincent was checking the fence line on the far edge of their property, Diana heard a noise from the barn. She grabbed her rifle and moved cautiously toward the sound. The barn door was ajar, swinging slightly in the breeze. Diana's heart pounded as she pushed it wider, peering into the dimness. 2 men stood inside, strangers she had never seen before. They were saddling their horses, clearly preparing to steal them. Get away from those animals, Diana said, raising her rifle. The men spun around. One of them, a scarred man with cold eyes, smiled slowly. Well now, what do we have here? Pretty little lady all alone. I am not alone, Diana said, trying to keep her voice steady. My husband will be back any moment, and I know how to use this rifle. I bet you do. The scarred man took a step toward her. But you are shaking, sweetheart. Not sure you could hit anything even if you tried. He was right. Diana's hands were trembling, making the rifle barrel waver, but she forced herself to sight down it anyway. Last warning, leave, now. The man lunged. Diana pulled the trigger, but her shaking aim sent the shot wide. The man grabbed the rifle barrel, wrenching it from her grip, and Diana stumbled backward. She opened her mouth to scream, but a hand clamped over it, rough and stinking of tobacco. Then she heard Vincent's voice, deadly calm. Let her go. The hand released her, and Diana scrambled away, gasping. Vincent stood in the barn doorway, his Colt aimed steady at the scarred man's chest. Walk away, Vincent said, right now. Before I put a bullet in you. We were just leaving, the scarred man said, but his eyes were calculating, measuring distances. Then leave, without the horses. They went, mounting their own horses tied outside and riding off fast. Vincent did not lower his gun until they were out of sight. Then he turned to Diana and pulled her into his arms. Are you all right? Did they hurt you? No. You got here in time. Diana was shaking now in earnest, reaction setting in. Vincent, who were they? Why are all these people suddenly coming after us? I do not know. But Vincent's face was grim. But we are going to find out. The answer came 2 days later, delivered by a nervous-looking clerk from the land office in Austin. Diana and Vincent were eating lunch when the young man rode up, dismounting with a sheaf of papers clutched in one hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Fallow, I am Thomas Miller from the land office. I need to speak with you about your property." Diana felt dread pool in her stomach. "What about it?" "There has been a claim filed. A man named Richard Carson is asserting that this land was never properly deeded to your father, Mrs. Fallow, and that he holds the original claim to it." "That is absurd," Diana said hotly. "My father had all the proper paperwork. He filed everything correctly." "Yes, madam, I am sure he did. But Mr. Carson has produced documents that predate your father's claim, documents that suggest this land was already owned when your father settled here." Vincent's hand found Diana's under the table, squeezing tight. "What kind of documents?" "I have copies here." Miller spread papers across the table, and Diana's heart sank as she looked at them. They appeared official, complete with stamps and signatures. "The land office has to investigate the claim. Until it is resolved, you cannot sell the property or make any major improvements." "This is a lie," Diana said. "Richard Carson is Jake Carson's father. They have been trying to drive us off this land for months. Now they are resorting to forgery and fraud." "I understand your frustration, madam, but the law requires us to take all claims seriously." Miller gathered up his papers, looking genuinely sorry. "I will do everything I can to expedite the investigation, but these things take time." After he left, Diana sat in stunned silence. Vincent paced the cabin, fury rolling off him in waves. "They are trying to steal your home," he said, "using the law as a weapon because they know they cannot scare us off." "What do we do?" Diana felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "If those documents are official, even if they are forged, proving it could take months or years, we could lose everything." Vincent stopped pacing and knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands. "We fight. We find a lawyer. We gather every piece of paper your father ever had related to this land. And we prove those documents are fake. And in the meantime, we do not let the Carsons intimidate us. This is our home, Diana. We are not giving it up without a fight." His certainty steadied her. Diana nodded, squaring her shoulders. "You are right. My father would never have let them bully him, and I will not either." They spent the next weeks gathering evidence, riding into Sweetwater to meet with a lawyer named Franklin Pierce who agreed to take their case. Pierce was a sharp-eyed man in his 60s who specialized in land disputes, and he assured them that Carson's documents looked suspicious. "The signatures are wrong," Pierce said, examining the papers through a magnifying glass, "and the stamps are from the wrong year. Whoever forged these did a decent job, but not good enough. We can fight this, Mrs. Fallow. It will take time and money, but we can win." Diana felt hope flicker for the first time since Miller's visit. "How long?" 3 months, maybe 4, if we push hard and the judge is willing to move quickly." Pierce set down the magnifying glass. "In the meantime, I suggest you watch your backs. Men who resort to forgery are capable of worse." He was proven right a week later when Diana and Vincent woke to find their barn on fire. They managed to get the animals out, but the structure itself was a total loss. Standing in the ash and rubble the next morning, Diana felt despair threatening to overwhelm her. "Everything we worked for," she said, "all those months of building, and they destroyed it in minutes." "Then we will build it again." Vincent put his arm around her shoulders. "Bigger and better. We are not defeated, Diana, not by a long shot." Sheriff Bradley came out to investigate the fire and agreed it had been deliberately set, but without witnesses, there was nothing he could do. The frustration in his voice suggested he knew exactly who was responsible, but lacked the proof to act. That night, lying in bed, Diana turned to Vincent. "What if we lose?" she asked quietly. "What if the judge rules against us, or the Carsons burn down the cabin next time? What if we are fighting a battle we cannot win?" Vincent rolled to face her, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "Then we will start over somewhere else, together. Diana, I do not care about the land. I care about you. Wherever you are, that is home to me. If we lose this place, we will find another. We will build another life. As long as I have you, nothing else matters." Tears slipped down Diana's cheeks. "This place is my father's legacy. I wanted to make him proud." "You already have. You survived alone for 2 years, kept his dream alive when everyone expected you to fail. He would be proud of that, no matter what happens with the land." Vincent kissed her forehead. "But we are not going to lose. We are going to fight and win. And we are going to raise our family here and build something beautiful. I believe that with everything I am." His faith gave Diana strength. She clung to it through the long months of legal proceedings that followed. Franklin Pierce filed motion after motion, building their case with meticulous care. The trial date was set for early February, and as winter deepened, Diana and Vincent prepared their defense. They also rebuilt the barn, this time with help. To Diana's surprise, several families from Sweetwater showed up one Saturday morning with lumber and tools. Mrs. Thompson, the preacher's wife, had organized it, spreading the word that the Fallows needed assistance. "This town takes care of its own," Mrs. Thompson said firmly when Diana tried to thank her. "Your father was a good man, and you and Vincent have proved yourselves worthy of respect. We will not stand by and let the Carsons drive you out." The barn went up in 3 days, a testament to what community could accomplish. Diana found herself crying happy tears as she watched neighbors she had barely known work alongside Vincent. Maybe she and Vincent were not as alone as she had thought. Christmas came, their first as a married couple. They made the best of it despite the shadow of the trial hanging over them. Vincent surprised Diana with a carved wooden box he had made for her jewelry, every surface decorated with intricate flowers. Diana gave him a new leather gun belt she had commissioned from the saddle maker in town, his initials tooled into the leather. "I love you," Diana said, as they sat by the fire on Christmas evening. "Whatever happens in February, whatever the judge decides, I want you to know that marrying you was the best decision I ever made." "Second best," Vincent corrected. "The best decision was dragging me inside and fighting for my life. Everything good came from that." "I suppose you're right," Diana smiled. "Though technically you made that decision by crawling to my door instead of someone else's." "Fate," Vincent said. "I was supposed to find you. We were supposed to be together." Diana did not argue. Some part of her believed it too, believed that all the pain and struggle had been leading them to each other. In January, they discovered Diana was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but when the doctor confirmed it, the news felt both joyful and terrifying. They were bringing a child into a world where their home and future were uncertain. "We will figure it out," Vincent said, his hands splayed across her still flat stomach. "This baby will be loved and protected no matter what. I promise you that." The trial began on February 10th in the courthouse in Austin. Diana and Vincent made the 3-day journey by wagon, staying in a boarding house near the courthouse. Franklin Pierce had prepared them well, coaching them on what to say and how to present themselves. The courtroom was intimidating, all dark wood and formal procedures. Richard Carson sat at the opposing table with his lawyer, a slick man from Dallas with expensive clothes and a condescending manner. Jake Carson was there too, watching Diana and Vincent with unconcealed hostility. The trial lasted 4 days. Pierce systematically dismantled Carson's claim, bringing in handwriting experts who testified that the signatures on the forged documents did not match those on other contemporary records. He produced Diana's father's original land deed, purchased legitimately and filed properly with all required fees paid. He even tracked down the clerk who had processed her father's claim back in 1872, a man now retired who remembered the transaction clearly. Carson's lawyer argued and objected and tried to introduce doubt, but Pierce was relentless. On the 4th day, he called Vincent to the stand. "Mr. Fallow, please tell the court how you came to be living on the disputed property." Vincent explained about the raid on the Henderson ranch, about crawling wounded to Diana's door, about her saving his life. He spoke about their marriage and their plans for the homestead. His testimony was clear and compelling, and Diana saw several members of the jury nodding sympathetically. Then Carson's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Mr. Fallow, is it not true that you were a drifter before coming to Sweetwater? A man with no property and no prospects? I was a working cowhand, Vincent said evenly. I worked honest jobs for honest pay. And now you are married to a woman who owns valuable land. Quite a fortunate turn of events for you. Vincent's eyes went hard. I married Diana because I love her. The land means nothing to me except that it matters to her. Come now, Mr. Fallow, you expect this court to believe that you would be content to walk away from a prosperous homestead? If it meant Diana was safe and happy, I would walk away today. Vincent looked directly at the jury. My wife is my home. Everything else is just dirt and buildings. Diana felt tears stream down her face at his words. She saw several jurors glancing at her, saw the women among them dabbing at their own eyes. The judge, a stern man named Williams, called for closing arguments. Pierce stood and delivered a passionate speech about justice, about protecting honest settlers from fraud, about the importance of the rule of law. Carson's lawyer argued that reasonable doubt existed about the legitimacy of Diana's father's claim. Then Judge Williams sent the jury to deliberate. Diana and Vincent waited in a small room off the courthouse, holding hands and barely speaking. 2 hours passed. 3. Diana was starting to fear the worst when finally a clerk came to tell them the jury had reached a verdict. They filed back into the courtroom. The jury foreman, a rancher with weathered features, stood when prompted. In the matter of Carson versus Fallow, we find in favor of the defendant, Mrs. Diana Fallow. The claim filed by Richard Carson is rejected as fraudulent. Diana felt Vincent's arms come around her as her knees buckled. They had won. They had actually won. Judge Williams was speaking, his voice stern. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the county prosecutor for criminal investigation. Forgery of land documents is a serious crime, Mr. Carson. You and your sons should expect to hear from the authorities. Richard Carson's face went purple with rage. But Jake put a hand on his father's arm, holding him back. They left the courtroom in silence while Diana and Vincent accepted congratulations from Pierce and the spectators who had sat through the trial. You did it, Pierce said, shaking Vincent's hand. You protected your home. We did it, Vincent corrected, pulling Diana close. All of us together? They stayed in Austin one more night to ensure all the paperwork was properly filed, then began the journey home. Diana felt as if a massive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The homestead was secure. Their future was secure. And growing inside her was the first of what she hoped would be many children to fill that future with love and laughter. Spring came to Sweetwater, bringing wildflowers and warm breezes. Diana's pregnancy progressed, her belly rounding noticeably. Vincent was absurdly protective, barely letting her lift anything heavier than a plate. She complained about it frequently, but secretly loved his attentiveness. The Carsons left Sweetwater not long after the trial. Faced with potential criminal charges and the scorn of the community, they packed up and moved on. Sheriff Bradley stopped by the homestead to inform Diana and Vincent personally. Good riddance, Bradley said. They were nothing but trouble. You two did this town a favor by standing up to them. Summer arrived, hot and dry. Diana spent her days in the shade of the porch sewing baby clothes and watching Vincent work. He had expanded the homestead significantly, adding more fence line and planting additional crops. They had 3 cows now and a dozen chickens, and Vincent was talking about getting pigs next year. We are building something real here, Diana said one evening as they sat together watching the sunset. Something that will last. We are building a legacy, Vincent agreed, for our children and their children. Everything we do now is making their future better. Diana went into labor on a sweltering August afternoon. Vincent rode hell-bent for town to fetch the midwife, a capable woman named Sarah Jenkins who had delivered half the babies in Sweetwater. Diana labored through the afternoon and into the night, Vincent holding her hand and whispering encouragement. Their son was born just after midnight, squalling and red-faced and perfect. Vincent cried when Sarah placed the baby in his arms, tears streaming down his face unchecked. He is beautiful, Vincent said hoarsely. Diana, he is perfect. They named him James, after Diana's father. Little James had Vincent's dark hair and Diana's blue eyes, and from the moment she held him, Diana knew she would do anything to protect him and give him the best life possible. The first year of James's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and profound joy. Vincent proved to be a natural father, patient and gentle with his son. Diana watched them together and felt her heart overflow with love for her little family. They added a room onto the cabin for James, then another for the second baby they were expecting. Vincent built furniture and Diana sewed curtains and quilts, making their home beautiful as well as functional. Neighbors visited often, bringing gifts and advice. The Fallows had become a respected part of the Sweetwater community. Their daughter arrived in the spring of 1880, an easier birth than James had been. They named her Rose, and she was a happy, easy baby who rarely fussed. James, now almost 2, was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. "We are blessed," Diana said one evening as she and Vincent sat on the porch watching their children play. James was running in circles while Vincent bounced Rose on his knee. "I never imagined I could be this happy." "Neither did I." Vincent looked at her, his brown eyes warm with love. "That day I crawled to your door, I thought I was dying. Turns out I was being born into a new life. Everything I am, everything good I have comes from you. We saved each other," Diana said. "I was so lonely before you came. I did not realize how much I needed someone until I had you. And now you are stuck with me forever," Vincent teased, "exactly where I want to be." The years flowed past, rich and full. James grew into a sturdy, serious boy who loved helping his father with the ranch work. Rose was sunshine and laughter, always singing or dancing. They had 2 more children, another son named William and a daughter named Clara. The cabin grew with their family, room by room, until it was a proper ranch house. Diana's homestead expanded into a thriving ranch. They ran cattle and horses, supplied eggs and vegetables to Sweetwater, and trained working dogs that were in high demand throughout Texas. Vincent's skill with horses became legendary, and people traveled from distant towns to buy animals he had trained. Through it all, Diana and Vincent's love deepened and strengthened. They still sat together on the porch most evenings, still talked for hours about everything and nothing. They weathered droughts and storms, celebrated successes, and comforted each other through losses. They buried friends and welcomed new neighbors, saw Sweetwater grow from a dusty frontier town into a proper community. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Vincent took Diana into town for dinner at the new restaurant that had opened on Main Street. Their children were old enough to manage the ranch for an evening, though James at 19 was practically running the place anyway. 20 years, Diana said, raising her glass of wine. "Sometimes it feels like forever, and sometimes it feels like yesterday." "Forever yesterday," Vincent said, clinking his glass against hers. "That is perfect. Diana, you are still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Still the strongest, the smartest, the most remarkable. I fall in love with you more every day." "You are sentimental in your old age," Diana teased, though her eyes were misty. "I am only 46. That is not old." Vincent reached across the table to take her hand. "Besides, I have earned the right to be sentimental. I almost died before I ever met you. Every day since then has been a gift." They walked home through the warm Texas night, hand in hand like young sweethearts. The ranch house glowed with lamplight as they approached, and through the windows they could see their children moving about, living their own lives within the safety and love Diana and Vincent had built. "We did good," Diana said softly. "We did," Vincent agreed, "and we are not done yet. We have grandchildren to spoil someday, and more adventures ahead of us. Always more adventures with you." They climbed the porch steps together, entering the house that had grown from a small cabin into a true home. James looked up from the book he was reading and smiled. "How was dinner?" "Perfect," Diana said, "just perfect." Later, lying in bed with Vincent's arms around her, Diana thought about the path that had led them here. The pain and fear of that first day when she had dragged a dying man across her threshold. The terror of nursing him through fever and infection. the slow building of trust and friendship that had become love, the trials and tribulations, the battles fought and won. Every moment had been worth it. Every struggle had brought them to this place of deep contentment and joy. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, his voice drowsy. "Everything. How far we have come. How lucky I am." Diana turned in his arms to face him. "How much I love you." "I love you too, always and forever." Vincent kissed her softly. "Thank you for saving my life, Diana Fallow. Best thing that ever happened to me." "Thank you for crawling to my door instead of someone else's," Diana replied. "Best thing that ever happened to me, too." They fell asleep wrapped around each other just as they had on their wedding night 20 years before. Outside, the Texas sky blazed with stars, and the land they had fought for and built upon stretched peaceful and secure into the darkness. James took over the ranch gradually over the next decade, though Vincent remained active and involved well into his 60s. Diana kept the books and managed the household, and together she and Vincent watched their children grow into capable adults who found love and purpose of their own. James married a school teacher named Margaret and gave them 3 grandchildren. Rose married a lawyer from Austin and had 2 daughters. William became a veterinarian, the first in the family to attend university, and married his college sweetheart. Clara, their baby, proved to have her father's gift with horses and eventually started her own training business on a piece of land Vincent and Diana gave her. As the 19th century drew to a close and a new one began, Diana and Vincent aged gracefully together. Vincent's hair went silver, and Diana's face gained lines of laughter and sun, but their love never dimmed. They still held hands on evening walks. They still talked late into the night about dreams and memories. They still looked at each other with the wonder of people who know they have found something precious and rare. On a warm spring morning in 1907, Diana woke to find Vincent already up, sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee and watching the sunrise. She joined him, settling into the rocking chair that was her favorite spot. "Beautiful morning," she said. "They are all beautiful," Vincent replied. 30 years I've been waking up to these sunrises, and they never get old." 30 years, Diana repeated. "We have been married 30 years, Vincent. More than half my life now." "The best half," Vincent said, "though I plan on the next 30 being even better." Diana laughed. "We will be in our 80s. Somehow I doubt we will be running the ranch at that age." "Maybe not, but we will be together. And that is all that matters." Vincent set down his coffee and took Diana's hand. "I have been thinking lately about that day I came crawling to your door. How close I came to dying without ever knowing you. It terrifies me sometimes thinking about how easily we could have missed each other." "But we did not miss each other," Diana said firmly. "We found each other, and we built this beautiful life. Do not waste time on what-ifs, my love. Focus on what is." "You are right, as always." Vincent pulled her out of her chair and into his lap, making her shriek with laughter. "What is that I love you more than anything in this world, Diana Fallow. You are my heart, my home, my everything." "And you are mine," Diana said, kissing him thoroughly despite the fact that grandchildren might appear at any moment. "Forever and always." They sat together on the porch as the sun climbed higher, warming the land they had built their lives upon. In the corrals, horses moved peacefully. In the fields, cattle grazed. The ranch house stood solid and strong, testament to decades of work and love. And in the hearts of Diana and Vincent Fallow, love burned as bright and fierce as it had on the day they first admitted their feelings to each other. Through trials and triumphs, through seasons of hardship and years of plenty, through the raising of children and the welcoming of grandchildren, their love had been the foundation upon which everything else was built. It was a love born in desperation and blood, forged in struggle, tempered by time into something unbreakable. It was the kind of love poets write about and storytellers celebrate, though Diana and Vincent themselves would have been surprised to hear it described that way. To them it was simply life as it was meant to be lived. Together. Always together. As the years continued to pass, they remained devoted partners in all things. When Vincent's health began to fail in his 70s, Diana nursed him with the same fierce determination she had shown that first week. And when it was Diana who fell ill, Vincent never left her side. They lived to see the automobile come to Sweetwater, to see their grandchildren grow and give them great-grandchildren. They lived to see the ranch become one of the most successful in the region, a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. And when finally their time came, first Vincent and then Diana a year later, they left behind a family who loved them and a community that respected them. They left behind a story of courage and love, of two people who found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something extraordinary. The ranch house still stands, passed down through generations of Fallows, and sometimes on the quiet spring mornings, when the sun rises golden over the Texas prairie, you can almost see two figures sitting together on the porch, holding hands, watching the dawn, exactly where they belong, together, always together, forever